Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian back again with another painting video. Today I did something a little different. I actually went on YouTube and found a really amazing artist that I've been watching more and more of his stuff recently. His name's Chuck Black, and he is a acrylic artist. Predominantly, he probably does a lot of stuff with oils as well, but what I've seen is him do some paintings with acrylics, doing really realistic landscape paintings. And landscape paintings are something I'm really fascinated with, even back from like my childhood days of flipping through the channels and catching Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting, and watching him paint little happy trees around. So I found this guy Chuck Black, and he's got a lot of amazing videos, really great videos that kind of teach you some techniques as far as acrylic paintings and landscape paintings and stuff. And this is the first video in a series of his called Paintlikeapro, where he basically takes you through about an hour, 15 hour, 30-minute long video teaching you the process of doing a landscape painting. So this is not my original artwork. I followed along with a video of his, just trying to learn and trying to get better. And I think of all the paintings I've done so far, of all the drawings I've done so far, and the few larger paintings I've done thus far, this is definitely the best that I've felt about any of the finished products that I've done. And a couple things to note: I'm painting on some mixed-use paper, and he did his painting on canvas. So I don't have much experience painting on canvas. I don't know how different that is compared to mixed-use paper. I'm just kind of trying to make what I have work. And just work with what I got. So, that being said, I'm really happy with how this came out. So here I'm layering in just some basic colors of these mountains and forest tops in the background of this painting. And if you want to see the actual painting, like the actual original artwork from Chuck Black, I'll link his channel and try to link the actual video in the description box of this video so you can see how the master himself of this painting did it. I really am just trying to recreate what he did and try to do the best job I can of getting it close to where he got it. So at this point of the painting, and what I'm learning about acrylic paintings and paintings in general, is at the beginning it's like you're doing something that they would call like an underpainting. So you're blocking in a lot of the major sections of color and shape that's going to make up the actual details of your painting. So as I get closer to the foreground, I'm layering in some darker colors and layering in, some what's eventually going to be a darker portion of the forest that it fades out to the background. That I'm using a lot of blues and blending, and color blending is another aspect of painting that is really interesting. You have to really experiment and take your time with it and try to get the colors right to create the effect that you're going for. And there's a couple times during this process that I would mix a color and I would throw a little bit down on the paper and it would totally not work. And the beautiful thing about acrylics as opposed to watercolors is that with watercolors it's harder to go and correct a mistake that you make because of the nature of how the paint reacts and how the paint behaves. And with acrylics, you can layer and layer and layer and layer, and it's no big deal if you mess up. You can go back and you can fix it. And actually, if you look in the middle of this painting, where there's the white that's eventually going to become like a mountain stream coming from the background to the foreground, I basically painted through the middle of the stream with this tree line, and later I have to fix that. And it's really easy to fix because acrylics are, I guess, less translucent than watercolors, so you can really layer. See right here, I'm going in and fixing and creating what the beginnings of that stream is eventually going to be. So it's no big deal if you mess up a stroke. You can go back and fix it. And one of the cool things about painting is just that aspect that if you want to keep retooling the drawing, if you want to keep retooling the painting, you can, because you can just keep layering. So here I'm going back to the very background of these mountains and just fixing some of those colors and trying to get them closer to what Chuck's painting looks like. And Chuck, man, you are an amazing artist. If you ever stumble upon this video, I hope you do. I'm super inspired by your work and super inspired by just how you have made yourself into like a technician of acrylics. At this point in my art journey, I'm so enamored by everything, and I want to try everything and explore everything. I don't know if there is one type of medium that I'm going to focus on and try to really get better at. I really don't know. But, you know, acrylics are really fun, and I like the layering aspect of it, and how you can keep going over the same part multiple times. So here, I'm going in with a smaller, finer pen, a liner paintbrush rather, and doing some of the highlights on the trees in the foreground. And one of the magic parts, one of the magic moments of doing a painting that I'm realizing is after you get the background in, and after you get some of just the basic blocks of color, when you go in and you add those finer details like highlights, that really starts to bring certain aspects of the painting to life in this kind of magical way almost. And it's really like, I don't know, I feel like a magician a little bit when I'm going in there and I'm creating the shapes, and all of a sudden something starts to take shape right in front of your eyes, and it's like you're creating something out of thin air. It's really cool. It's really enjoyable. So now I'm going in with some black and just putting in a little more of the details of these tree trunks. And I'll go back over this part later in the painting. There's still a lot of detail to get in here. But at this point, I'm looking at it and I'm starting to see just how it's starting to take form. And then just going in and reworking the same areas over and over again. Like Chuck says, it's like you just keep going in and you keep reworking it, and you just have fun with it, and you just keep going. And you try not to judge what's going on and how it's turning out too harshly while you're doing it. And if there's one part of the painting that you're not really feeling, this is actually one thing, Chuck, that you said in this video, and that he said in this video actually, that really stuck with me, where it's like if you're doing a part of the painting and you're not feeling it, and it's just not working out, just focus on a different part. Leave that part alone for a while and then focus on something else. And what'll happen is your brain will take a break from that one part, it'll focus on something else, and then you'll look back on it with fresh eyes, and you'll come back to it with a better idea or a better strategy of how to make that part work in the way that you're envisioning it working. And it's just really cool, man. I'm having so much fun with this painting stuff, and this is by far the best that I think I've done so far. So I'm excited for you guys to see this, and I feel like I am progressing a little bit just in my understanding of how to work with the paintbrushes, how to work with the paint. And there's a lot to learn. I haven't taken any type of like formal class or anything like that, so I don't even know if I'm necessarily like wetting the brush enough, or wetting the brush too much, or mixing the colors the right way or not mixing the colors. It's everything that I'm doing is very intuitive, and I'm just trying to feel my way through this and not judge how I'm doing it, my technique so much, and just try to keep learning something new with every piece. And that like beginner's mind is something that's really crucial, I think, to being an artist, is just having the ability to come into a piece or a painting or sitting down to draw with as few preconceived notions or ideas as possible, because I feel like the blanker you can make your mind, the more empty you can make it, the more peaceful you can make it, the more receptive to what's right in front of it you can make it, the better art you're going to create. And I just think that's a factor of just bringing yourself more into the present moment, worrying less about the end result, and just immersing yourself in the process. This is actually a really fun part of the painting here too, like working on the stream and the water, and just going into like the background of the stream as it's fading out into the horizon or into the vanishing point in the back of the painting, and just working that shape a little bit and making it into more of a believable shape of a stream was really fun. And then painting just these background mountains a little bit towards the back of the painting just to round out those shapes. And then coming in with more of those highlights on the trees and getting them just more detailed to the point where they look more believable, they look more real. Because one of the things I'm realizing about paintings is you're not so much recreating life as much as you're giving the illusion of life existing with shapes and with shades and different things. So with paint, it's like it's not as, at least with landscape, it's not as precise as like doing a pencil drawing where you're really getting a lot of the contour lines and stuff that make up a person's face per se, or a scene. With paints, you're like layering in like the foundation, the bottom, like these little black spots I'm putting in are going to be rocks eventually. And then I'm adding these highlights over them, these lighter colors over them. And then as I go in with the rest of the details towards the end of the painting, as you look at the painting as a whole, as you zoom out and you look back like 3 or 4 feet from the painting, it looks really realistic. But then as you zoom in, you see like every single brush stroke that I put on the paper. And that's why I think paintings are so almost like psychedelic in a certain aspect, because when you zoom out and you look at them from way back in the distance, a couple feet away, it looks like one cohesive image that makes sense, right? But then when you zoom in and you look at every little brush stroke, you see that every stroke is just this little dot or little, line or little piece of paint on the paper, and each individual, you see how each individual piece of it makes up the whole. And that is that's kind of the definition of like a psychedelic idea, where it's like you are not a separate entity, like you're part of a giant whole, you're part of something much bigger than yourself. And that's something you can experience through painting, because every little mark you're putting down relates to another mark around it and relates to the whole picture. So this is a flat fan texture brush, and this is actually a really fun part. I mixed a couple different colors together. I forget, there's some blue in there, there's some white in there, some yellow, and some red, some green as well. And I'm creating like grass and flowers and different things. And it's really fun because you're like putting random marks down on the page, and then as you're doing it, you're creating that appearance from a couple feet away of flowers and like, a meadow or a field of dandelions, or just different things that you would see in this forest scene. So this is a really fun part of doing this painting. And at this point, I'm going in and I'm feeling really good about where the painting is, and I'm excited about it, and I'm really happy with where it's going. And then I'm starting to look at this stream, and I'm starting to think of ways to make the water look a little more believable, to add some shadows or add some little waves in the stream to just kind of add those details to it to make it more of a believable painting. So that's probably one of the next things I'm going to be doing on this video after I finish with this texture brush. So yeah, once again, Chuck Black, check him out on YouTube. I'll link his channel. He's got tons of subscribers and a lot of great videos. And there's a really inspiring video that he put out called, I think it's called like The Struggle of an Artist, or The Artist Struggle. And it's really inspiring because you see his process from doing some simple line drawings and trying to come up with a concept of a painting, and really using some references, but pulling from his own brain, his own imagination, creating this scene, this mountain scene with like a cabin in the foreground. And he talks about how sometimes he can spend just days on just doing these drawings, these line drawings, before he ever starts painting, because he wants to make sure he has the concept as close to what he sees in his head as possible. And then you see him go through the process of putting it down on paper, and he's got this music in the background, he's getting jacked up, he's excited, he's jumping around his studio, and it's super inspiring to watch. He puts on his headphones and he just goes. And I love that feeling when you start a painting where you're just in the zone, right? You've got the paint on the palette, you've got your headphones on, music going, and you're just dialed in, and you're not thinking about anything else going on in your life, and it is just you and the paper or the canvas and the paints and your imagination, and it's just really cool. So here I'm just going back in and reworking couple finer details on this stream, and I'm sure I could have gotten this water way more lifelike, way more realistic, but every painting is a learning process. So this one was I learned a lot doing this painting. I learned a lot about blending colors. I learned a lot about reworking certain parts that you're not necessarily happy with, in that even if you feel like you totally messed up a certain part of the painting, you can always go back and just correct it and make it better. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons from this painting, and it was really fun. And one of the last parts that you're going to see here that I think the video cuts off before I get into it totally is that at the end of it, Chuck added a light source at the top left of the painting. So it's almost like the sun is peeking over. If you look on the top left of the painting, it looks like there's like a cliff in the distance there. And it looks like the sun is peeking over the cliff, and you see these sun rays coming down through the painting. And that was a really cool technique, and I'm starting to kind of put the white in the top corner to create the illusion of that. And I even streamed some red across the top of the sky, which you'll see on the final picture at the end of this video, that creates those rays of sunlight coming down. And that was a really cool effect that was one of those kind of magical moments, it felt like to me, when I'm putting the brush to the paper and just creating this effect, and it just looks really cool. So I'm adding in some of that red here to the top, just really faintly, almost creating a look of like a sunrise or a sunset. And again, working with a drier brush and just trying to really push down hard on the paper and blend, so I can create that effect of this sunlight coming down from the top left of the painting. And then obviously in the front of the painting, the bottom right of the painting, you see the colors are much more bright and vibrant because the sunlight is coming over the top left cliff and hitting everything here in the foreground, which creates kind of the focal point, I guess you would say, of the painting, which are these flowers on the bottom right and the bottom of this stream, and then this initial tree line with the bright green in there. And everything kind of goes to that focal point. So from the faint light blue in the background to the darker blue to the sunrise coming over the cliff down to where the focal point is at the bottom right, using lighting in the painting, I'm learning, is so crucial, because that's where your eyes get drawn. And where your eyes get drawn is what basically creates the context of the rest of the picture. So yeah, needless to say, this was super fun. I had a blast with it. I can't wait to try another one of his Paintlikeapro videos. Maybe I'll do another landscape coming up. Chuck, thank you again for the inspiration, man. I'm going to tag you in this video. Hope you see this. It'd be really cool if you gave me a comment or two and just maybe a tip or something I can improve upon. I know one of the things I can definitely work on is just spending more time with it. I only spent about 2.5 hours on this, and I think I could have let it dry for a night and come back to it the next day, and even like went in and reworked some of those areas. But really cool learning experience. Here's the finished product, and I'm happy with how it came out. Had fun with it. So thanks again, Chuck. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.